My name is Lucas, and I've lived alone since my wife Anna passed away 5 years ago. I'm 79 now, a retired teacher with a stubborn heart and a slow, steady gait that my cane helps along. My days follow a well-worn pattern: tea at 6, toast at 6:30, and the daily crossword puzzle by 7. It's predictable, quiet, and mine. That morning, just as I settled into my chair with my second cup of tea, the phone rang. It was my son, Oliver. His voice carried an unfamiliar warmth, and that was my first red flag. "Dad," he said, "we're having a little family dinner this weekend. For my birthday, I'd really love for you to come." His birthday. Right. I hadn't forgotten. What I had forgotten was the last time he invited me over without it being about something. The last time, it was about downsizing. The time before that, retirement communities. And always the same gentle tone, the careful words, the passive-aggressive concern. I felt my chest tighten, not from fear, but from that cold, sinking certainty. I knew this wasn't about a birthday. Still, I said yes. I didn't want to, but Anna would have wanted me to go. She always said, "Give people the chance to be better, even when they disappoint you." She had been the buffer between me and Oliver's controlling instincts. Without her, our conversations often felt like strategic games instead of family talks. I hung up the phone and stared out the window at the quiet street. The house was still, filled with the ghosts of memories. Anna's laughter in the kitchen, her humming when she folded laundry, the scent of her perfume that still lingered faintly in our bedroom. This house was more than bricks and plaster. It was her. It was us. And I wasn't ready to give it up to anyone, not even to Oliver, who saw it as valuable property in an up-and-coming neighborhood. I finished my tea and began mentally preparing for the dinner I already dreaded. Something was coming. I could feel it in my bones. I arrived at Oliver's house just before 6. The air was crisp, the kind that made your joints complain, and I leaned a bit heavier on my cane as I stepped up to the door. Oliver greeted me with exaggerated cheer, all teeth and two wide eyes. "Dad, you made it," he said, like I was some frail patient miraculously recovering. Inside, the house was bright and modern, sterile in a way that made me miss the creaky warmth of my own home. The kitchen smelled of roast beef and red wine, but beneath it all, something was off. Too polished, too prepared. The guests were mostly from Oliver's work, suits and fake laughter. I sat quietly in a corner while they talked about quarterly projections and market saturation. When Oliver introduced me, he did it like I was some charming relic. "This is my dad, Lucas. Sharp as ever. Though sometimes he forgets things," he added with a chuckle. Everyone laughed politely. I didn't. Dinner was served around 7. Across the table, Oliver's wife, Jessica, sat rigid, her smile plastic. She raised her glass to me. "To Lucas," she said, "we just want what's best for you." "What's best for me?" I asked, letting the silence stretch. Oliver took over. "We've been thinking, Dad. It's time you considered moving somewhere safer. A place with help, community, supervision. Sun Valley has great reviews." I kept chewing. Slowly, calmly. "You'd be happier," Jessica added. "No more climbing stairs or worrying about your medication. And honestly," she glanced at Oliver, "this house of yours is a lot to maintain." There it was. "Besides," Oliver continued, casually swirling his wine, "we've been planning an expansion for the firm. If we could put your house up as collateral, it'd really help us grow. You wouldn't have to do anything. We'd handle all the paperwork." "And where would I live?" "Sun Valley, of course," Jessica replied, as if I were the last to get the joke. Then, in front of everyone, Oliver said with mock concern, "You've had some memory issues, haven't you, Dad? Like forgetting where you put your keys? Or the time you called me twice about the same thing? The guest laughed again, nervously. I looked at my son. That wasn't concern. That was groundwork. Later, I excused myself to the washroom. When I came back, I saw Oliver hovering near my glass, just a second too long. A flicker of motion, a small, swift swirl. He didn't notice me watching. He smiled when I sat down, too quickly. I looked at the wine glass, identical to the others, except mine was now slightly closer to the edge. So I waited, bided my time. When Jessica reached to adjust the centerpiece, I gently nudged the base of her glass, just enough to mix them up. When I lifted the one in front of me, it wasn't mine anymore. Jessica took a sip of the other without noticing. I didn't drink at all. Not long after dinner, Jessica began to wobble in her seat. Her complexion turned a pale greenish hue, and she clutched at her stomach as if something inside had twisted cruelly. Oliver rushed to her side, face flushed with alarm, though his eyes darted to me, cold, questioning, calculating. I think I need to lie down, Jessica muttered, her voice brittle. The guests murmured concerned farewells as Oliver ushered her upstairs, apologizing profusely and blaming a bad oyster or too much wine. The party broke up awkwardly. I stayed seated, silent, watching, remembering every detail. Outside, I stepped into the cool night air, inhaling deeply as if to clear the stink of false concern. The stars above were sharp against the dark velvet sky. I thought maybe I'd just walk home. I needed the air. But Oliver followed me out. Wait, I turned slowly. His expression had changed. Gone was the son playing the dutiful host. Now, he looked like a man cornered. What did you do? He asked, low and venomous. You switched the glasses, didn't you? I didn't answer. I didn't need to. You think this is revenge? For wanting what's best for you? His voice trembled with indignation, but it was the wrong kind of anger. Not concern for Jessica. It was fear. Something else was unraveling. You think I don't see what this is about? He snapped. You've always wanted to be in control, even now. You'd rather rot alone in that mausoleum of a house than help your own family. I looked at him, really looked. Beneath the bluster, there was something else. Desperation, panic. I'm going home, Oliver, I said quietly. You take care of your wife. As I turned away, I heard his voice again, quieter this time. You'll regret this, Dad. I didn't reply. At home, the silence welcomed me like an old friend. The familiar creak of the floorboards, the ticking of the grandfather clock Anna and I had bought for our anniversary. It was all still mine, for now. The next morning, I awoke before sunrise, as usual. I made tea. I sat at the old oak desk and opened my laptop. The inbox had several new emails, promotions, news digests, and then 3 messages from my bank. Subject: confirmation of loan application. Subject: electronic signature authorization. Complete. Subject: second installment schedule for approved loan. I blinked, opened them one by one. The loans were in my name, amounts I never requested, documents signed with a digital signature I never gave, and worst of all, collateral listed, my house. I leaned back in my chair, blood rushing in my ears. This wasn't just manipulation anymore. It was theft, and it was only the beginning. I stared at the screen for what felt like hours, but the truth didn't change no matter how many times I reread the emails. The loan application, the approval, the digital signature I never gave, all neatly processed and finalized. My hands trembled as I opened the attachments. Loan amount: $680,000. Lender: First Community Bank. Purpose: business expansion. Applicant: Lucas J. Marlowe. Guarantor: Lucas J. Marlowe. And the signature: they had copied my full name in a clumsy imitation of my cursive. My name was forged. My house used as collateral. It wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't an accident. It was a crime. I printed every document. Page after page came out of the old printer beside my desk. Proof in black and white. Proof that my son, the boy I'd once taught how to hold a pencil and tie his shoes, had stolen from me, lied, betrayed me not out of carelessness or frustration, but with cold calculation. I sat there, the printed stack in my hand, for several long minutes. The sunlight filtered through Anna's lace curtains, dust motes dancing in its golden beam. She would have been heartbroken, so was I. But I was not defeated. I placed the pages into a manila folder and set them in my briefcase, the same one I'd used for decades as a teacher. The leather was worn and cracked, but it still held together, just like me. By 10 o'clock, I was dressed and ready. Gray wool coat, polished shoes, cane in one hand, briefcase in the other. I had called the bank earlier and arranged to speak to a manager. I didn't reveal much on the phone, only that there had been a grave mistake and I needed to verify several documents. At the front door, I paused. My hand rested on the doorknob, but my mind drifted to Oliver as a boy, curled up on the sofa with Anna, giggling at cartoons. I had loved him with everything I had, sacrificed for him, forgiven him more than he ever knew. But now, he had crossed a line. I opened the door and stepped out into the chill, not for revenge, not out of spite, but for justice. That afternoon, after presenting the evidence to the bank, I walked into the Stillwater Police Department. The young officer at the desk smiled politely until I opened the folder and explained the situation. Then his expression changed. "This is fraud, Mr. Marlowe," he said, flipping through the documents. "Serious fraud. You're saying your son forged all of this?" "Yes," I said. My voice didn't shake. "And I want to file an official report." The officer looked at me, perhaps expecting hesitation, but there was none. "I see," he said quietly, and began to type. The bank branch was hushed when I entered, quiet, polished, professional. I was ushered into a glass-walled office by a manager named Elizabeth, a woman in her 50s with tired eyes and a sympathetic demeanor. I laid out the documents in front of her and spoke clearly, without embellishment. "My son, Oliver Marlowe, forged my signature to obtain this loan," I said, tapping the page that bore my name in someone else's hand. "I did not authorize it. I want this on record." Elizabeth took her time reviewing everything, her brow furrowed. "Mr. Marlowe, this is significant. The house is collateral, but the signature here, yes, it's digital. And if you're telling me you didn't sign, I am." She nodded, then called in a notary and a senior officer. The process took nearly an hour. Sworn statements, copies of my ID, a full review of my financial history. I was methodical, calm. Each stroke of the pen was a brick in the wall I was building between me and my son's deceit. Then I made an offer. "I understand the bank can't simply cancel the loan now that it's disbursed," I said. "But I want the terms changed. The mortgage on my house stays, for now, but all payments are to be routed through me. Every dollar goes through my hands. No exceptions." The senior officer looked surprised. "Why not press charges immediately and have the loan voided?" "Because I'm not here to destroy him," I replied, "only to stop him." I left with a new agreement under review and a copy of my signed withdrawal of consent. The bank would follow up with their fraud division, but I had done what I came to do. The call came as I stepped back into my house. "You went to the bank?" Oliver's voice hissed through the phone. "Are you out of your mind?" "The bank knows, Oliver," I said simply. "The documents, the forgery, it's all filed. I gave them the truth. Nothing more, nothing less." "It was a technicality," he shouted. "I was going to tell you. You would have said no, and I didn't have time for one of your lectures. You forged my name and used my house as collateral. A long silence. Then, "You never believed in me. Not once. You think you were a perfect father? All those years with your nose in books and lectures, never seeing what I needed. You made me into this." "No," I said, and my voice was steady. "You made your choices, and now you'll live with them." He showed up at my door 30 minutes later, red-faced, pacing like a caged animal. "I was under pressure," he said. "Jessica doesn't know half of it. The business was sinking. I needed help. And instead of asking, you stole." "It wasn't stealing," he barked. "It's family." "Family doesn't drug each other's drinks," I said. "Family doesn't lie, forge documents, or hide behind birthday cake and fake concern." He slumped into a chair, hands in his hair. "You don't get it. I didn't want to end up like you." I stared at him. "Then why are you trying to take everything I built?" He didn't answer. "I'm not pressing charges, yet," I said. "But from this day forward, you don't touch anything with my name on it. You don't speak for me. You don't act on my behalf. We are done, Oliver. No more chances." He looked up, stunned, as if he'd never imagined I could say that, as if I'd be pliable forever. I opened the door. "You should go." He stood, looked around the home he had once grown up in, then walked out without a word. The door shut behind him with a finality that echoed through the house. The next day, I called Willow. She answered on the second ring, her voice warm and steady. My daughter had inherited Anna's calm, and more than a little of her clarity. She lived 2 towns over, worked as a school counselor, and though we didn't speak every week, when we did, it meant something. "Dad," she said, "you sound tired." "I need to tell you something," I said. And I did. I told her everything. Oliver's visit, the conversation I overheard, the forgery, the attempted drugging, the fraud report. Her silence deepened with every word. I could hear her breathing, slow and steady, processing, weighing. When I finished, she didn't speak right away. Then, "I'm coming over." She arrived that evening, her long coat dusted with road salt, her arms open. We hugged for a long time in the doorway. No words, just presence. When we finally sat down with tea, she said simply, "He's lucky you didn't press charges." "He's still my son," I said. "He's still a grown man who tried to steal from you." I nodded. "But I also see something else. Desperation, shame. And I wonder if there's still a way forward, one that doesn't burn it all down." Willow stayed the night. The next morning, Oliver called. Jessica was the one who spoke first. "We're sorry, Lucas," she said, her voice quiet and raw. "We made horrible choices. We were scared, and we acted selfishly. I see that now." Oliver's voice followed, slower, rougher. "I didn't mean to hurt you. I was panicking. Business debts, pressure. I thought if I just got ahead of it, I could fix it before anyone knew. I messed up. Bad." I said nothing for a moment. Then, "I'm not selling the house. That's final." "I understand," he replied, "but I have an idea. One that might work for all of us." They came that weekend. Willow, too. We sat around the kitchen table. No suits, no manipulations, just people, worn and humbled. "I'm going to convert the old workshop into a small flat," I said. "Separate entrance, my own space. I'll live there." Jessica blinked. "And the house?" "The main house becomes a family center. You need space. Willow might stay sometimes. The grandkids can visit. Holidays, birthdays, whatever. But I keep control. No banks, no signatures. And I get peace." Oliver looked at me, something like gratitude in his expression. "We'll help with the renovation. We'll all help," Willow added. And we did. In the weeks that followed, we cleared out the dusty shelves in the workshop, patched walls, installed plumbing. Oliver learned how to sand floorboards. Jessica handled the furnishings with Willow, I even saw them laughing together over paint samples. We worked side by side, not because we had to, but because we chose to. Something had shifted. It was subtle, but it was real. Where there had been betrayal, there was now responsibility. Where there had been schemes, there was sweat and sawdust and open hands. The past wasn't undone. The wounds were still there, healing slowly. But the house stood tall, as it always had. And for the first time in a long time, so did we. 2 weeks after I filed the report, the bank called me in. Elizabeth, the same manager who had helped me initially, greeted me with a reassuring nod. "Mr. Marlowe, after careful review and in light of the actions you've taken to secure the loan, we've decided not to escalate the matter to law enforcement." I exhaled slowly. "Thank you. We will mark the file accordingly," she added, "and we'll expect the adjusted payment plan to be strictly followed. As long as it is, this matter is considered closed." I left the bank lighter, not because the situation had been easy, far from it, but because something that once felt like an ending now seemed like a pause between chapters. Meanwhile, Oliver was making good on his promises. With Willow's help and a contact from his business school days, he secured 2 new investors. Small time, but solid. The expansion was back on track, this time above board, without my name anywhere near the paperwork. He was doing it the right way now, and I could see how it changed him. Jessica changed too. She started stopping by with groceries or ideas for the new kitchenette in the flat. At first, I thought it was obligation, but one day, while we painted the interior together, she looked at me and said, "I was wrong about you. I thought you were just old and stuck in your ways, but I didn't see everything you'd already survived." It was the first time she looked me in the eyes and meant it. The workshop transformed quickly. Oliver replaced the windows. Willow patched drywall with surprising skill. Jessica painted. Even the grandkids pitched in. Emily learned to use a measuring tape, and Jonah installed cabinet handles with a precision that would have made Anna smile. At night, we'd gather in the main house. Simple things: board games, movies, Willow's homemade stew. We hadn't done that in years. Not since Anna passed. It was awkward at first. Polite silences, overcorrections. But then it wasn't. Conversations began to feel less like negotiations and more like trust. Jessica laughed without checking Oliver's face first. Oliver asked me about my clock collection, really listened. The kids stopped flinching at my advice and started seeking it. I'd always thought the erosion of family was slow and irreversible, but sometimes all it takes is a firm boundary and a second chance to rebuild what seemed beyond repair. One night, as we sat around the fire pit in the backyard, Willow handed me a cup of cider and said, "You know, Dad, I think this house finally feels like a family home again." I looked at the faces around me, wounded, healing, hopeful. "Not again," I said, "for the first time." I moved into the renovated flat on a Saturday morning in late spring. The air smelled of cut grass and fresh paint, and the sun filtered through the new windows of what used to be my old workshop. Now it was something else entirely, a warm, modest home within a home, private, peaceful, mine. The space had just enough for what I needed. A small kitchenette, a sitting area, a compact bedroom, and the same old desk where I used to mark student essays. Willow had found the curtains, Jessica chose the throw pillows, and Oliver even bought me a new kettle for tea. It was strange to see them trying. Strange and good. I took one last look at the main house before closing the door behind me. I didn't feel bitterness anymore, only memory. I had lived decades in that house, through Anna's laughter, through Oliver's childhood, through lonely silence. I'd survived a lot within those walls, but now I wasn't trapped in the past. I had a present. I wasn't being put somewhere. I chose this. For the first time in a long time, the choice was mine. Unpacking was easy. I didn't bring much. My books, Anna's photo in its wooden frame, my grandfather's clock that still ticked faithfully. Everything else had already been reduced to essentials. Age does that. Time refines what matters. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked around. It wasn't grand, but it was right. Quiet. Intentional. A space carved out of chaos, not to retreat, but to rest. Later that day, Emily came over with a plate of cookies she and Jessica had baked. "This is your housewarming gift," she said shyly. "You get the first batch." I took one, smiled, and offered her the seat beside me. She sat and looked around. "It's nice in here. It smells like Grandpa's stuff." "Thank you, I think," I laughed. We sat in silence a moment. Then she asked, "Do you like it? Living here?" I looked at her, the next generation, eyes full of curiosity, and said, "Yes, I do, because it's where I belong." And I meant it. For years, I'd felt like the world had shifted just slightly without me, like I was a fixture everyone politely avoided, too fragile to move, too inconvenient to leave standing. But now I was neither burden nor relic. I was part of something again. A new rhythm had begun. Family meals where I wasn't just tolerated, but asked for advice. Mornings when I'd wake to see Oliver mowing the lawn, waving at me like a neighbor and a son. Evenings when Willow would stop by just to chat, no agenda, just presence. I still missed Anna. Of course I did. I always would. But I wasn't chasing the past anymore. I was walking forward, on my own feet, in my own space. This wasn't a final chapter. It was a new one, and I intended to live every word of it.